A new petition to have the American ambassador to Canada, Peter Hoekstra, thrown out of the country has just blown past 100,000 signatures, probably on its way to 1 million. This is kind of interesting news because this guy is not popular in Canada. He joked about Canada being the 51st state. He called Canadians nasty. He didn't understand why Canadians didn't like tariffs. And he has never failed to insult Canada and Canadians almost on a weekly basis. So what's interesting is that having him declared persona non grata is a real thing. If that was to happen legally, he would be legally obliged to leave the country. Essentially, he would be deported, which would seem for many Canadians like a great idea for the current U.S. ambassador.
Is the U.S. ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, actually, awesome? Let me clarify. This guy sucks. He sucks so bad. He's such a loser. And he's so bad at his job. I don't think he even knows what his job is. But he is a Trump sycophant. That's the only reason he has the job, is because he just does whatever Trump wants. And Trump hates Canada. He gets his orders directly from Trump. And so he says shitty things about Canada all the time. Saying things like, I don't understand why Canadians are so mad. He's constantly insulting Canadians. And for the longest time, I've been like, God, why is he even allowed in the country? This guy is bad for Canada. I don't think he is. I started thinking about no, he's actually great for Canada because the best thing that we can do right now as Canadians is unite against Donald Trump. It is such a perfect trigger to pull to make Canadians unite against Donald Trump and against America. Not all Americans, but America, because America is clearly the biggest threat to Canada right now. Pete Hoekstra, every few days or weeks, comes out and says something fucking stupid, disparaging Canada on Canadian soil. He does this. That every single time makes the resolve of Canadians against Donald Trump that much better. It also makes Mark Carney way more powerful every single time because he is the one standing up to Donald Trump and he's doing it really fucking well. And every time Pete Hoekstra says something stupid, people look at what Carney's doing and they're like, yep, I like that. Because Carney does a lot of shit domestically that I am not a fan of. But when it comes to the reputation of Canada and it comes to pushing back against the Americans, he's fucking killing it. That's to me, kind of his best quality at the moment. So Pete Hoekstra, no, we don't want to get rid of him. We want to keep him. We want to egg him on. We want to keep saying, yeah, man, I think we should let him loose. Hopefully he ramps it up and starts saying dumber shit even more frequently. Because every time he does, it's good for the country. It is. It's annoying. And it is hard to look past the initial rage that we feel when some dumbass like Hoekstra says some anti-Canadian dumbassery. But if you can look past that, yeah, he's great for the country. He is. Because imagine if he was actually good at his job. He would be selling Donald Trump's message better and trying to convince Canadians that this is in our best interest. No, he's not doing that at all. He's just insulting us as Canadians, as a country, and strengthening our resolve. So, is he actually awesome? I mean, to us, yes. Is he a good guy? No, he's a...
Hello everyone, my name is Rose and today we are talking about a developing story that is creating even more tension between Canada and the United States. A petition calling for the removal of US Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, has attracted more than 170,000 signatures from Canadians. And this is simply not an online petition that people are signing and forgetting about it. It has been submitted to Canada's House of Commons and is demanding that the Canadian government take action. So why are so many Canadians calling for the American ambassador to leave? The petition accuses Ambassador Hoekstra of making statements and engaging in conduct that critics believe undermines Canada-US relations and crosses the line into Canadian domestic affairs. Much of the anger comes against the backdrop of President Donald Trump's repeated comments about Canada becoming the 51st state. For many Canadians, those comments are not funny or harmless. They touch directly on questions of Canadian sovereignty and national identity. So let's first hear what people are saying, and then I'll come back and conclude on this matter.
You're wondering why people want U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra out of Canada and why thousands of Canadians are signing a petition to make that happen? Let's talk about Pete, shall we? Yes, Donald Trump is a little part of this story, but it isn't really about Trump. This is about the guy Trump sent to Canada to represent him, Pete Hoekstra. Apparently, Pete has some feelings about Canadians. In September 2025, Pete announced, "I'm disappointed that I came to Canada." Oh, sorry, Pete. I didn't realize you were expecting a welcome basket. Apparently, the problem is that it's very, very difficult to find Canadians who are passionate about the Canada-US relationship. Yep. Well, maybe it's because we're a little busy watching the American president threaten our sovereignty and slap tariffs on our economy. But don't worry, Pete has an explanation. Canadians who push back with elbows up were apparently participating in an anti-American campaign. Pete, we are Canadians. We truly don't give a fuck about your government. Obviously, saying don't screw with Canada means you hate 340 million Americans, which is totally logical. And then there was the 51st state thing. Canadians heard Donald Trump repeatedly talking about making Canada part of the United States and thought absolutely fucking not. Pete's response, apparently Trump's proposal was, get this, a sign of affection. That's what we're calling it now. Ugh. Because nothing says romance like nice country you've got there. Be a shame if somebody annexed it. And then we get to diplomacy. In October 2025, Hoekstra reportedly got into an expletive-laced confrontation with Ontario's trade representative over Ontario's anti-tariff advertising campaign. Because apparently when you're the ambassador, the best way to build international relations is to lose your fucking mind at a Canadian official. You know, diplomacy. Very traditional. And this is all why I support the petition calling for Hoekstra to be removed as ambassador. Because here's the thing, Pete. You don't have to like Canadians. You don't have to like our government. You don't have to like our tariffs. You don't even have to like elbows up. But you're the US ambassador to Canada. Your job is diplomacy, not coming here and acting personally offended that Canadians aren't sufficiently enthusiastic about America. We're not your fucking fan club, Pete. And yes, Trump and his policies are absolutely part of the reason Canadians are pissed off. But Pete Hoekstra is responsible for his own words, his own behavior, and his own attitude. So yes, I'm signing the petition, not because I'm anti-American, because apparently someone needs to remind Pete Hoekstra that Canada is a country, not a fucking fan club. And Pete, did you forget that Canada liberated your homeland in the Netherlands, or are you just not too good at history? You're welcome, by the way. I'm disappointed you came to Canada too. So there, now we're even.
Have you heard of this guy? If you haven't, you should. This is Pete Hoekstra, the US ambassador to Canada. And there's currently a petition to expel him. Why? Because of some very problematic statements he has said. I'm very proud to say that a woman within Calgary, where I live now, started this petition. And it has gained way more traction in the past few days than it had before. And already it had gained I think 30,000 signatures. But in the past couple days, it's almost quadrupled, where it's sitting at 127,000 currently as of this video. But yes, what kind of statements has Pete Hoekstra made? He's been critical of Canada trying to defend itself during this trade war. That was started by the Cheeto man, his boss. And even in June, he said that annexation of Canada becoming the 51st state would be a great discussion between Mark Carney and Donald Trump. How is that diplomatic? Attack on Canadian sovereignty, nationality, and identity. Fortunately, Elizabeth May has already said that she will take up this legislation in the fall. This would be an incredibly bold move to expel the US ambassador and unprecedented in Canadian-US relations. The link to the petition will be in my bio. But do you think that we should do this? Do you think this will hurt or help Canada in the current discussions we have with the Trump administration regarding trade?
We're not mad at Hoekstra. We're just taking it out on him. We're really mad at Trump. Yes. And so it doesn't matter if you kick him out. It doesn't do anything. And I think when you weigh benefits and drawbacks, we got a lot more to lose than we have to gain if this thing actually panned out. And there's also such a thing as precedent in this country. We have kicked out diplomats before, but it's for very serious reasons. Yeah. We're talking about kicking out Chinese diplomats for foreign interference. Yeah. We have kicked out Indian diplomats because we have accused them of being part of murder plots. We have kicked Iraqi officials out because they were part of Saddam Hussein's regime. You want to kick out Hoekstra because he's saying bad things about Canada. It just doesn't fit the precedent.
And here's
that
the
already
thing.
exists.
Additionally, what about the devil you know argument versus the devil you don't? And I'm not saying he's the devil. It's just a saying. But but here's the thing. Do we really think if he was to get kicked out, which I don't think again will ever happen, do we really think that the president will then nominate a new ambassador because he nominates them? Do we think he's going to nominate like a super
nice guy?
pro-Canadian nice guy ambassador?
No,
he might end up nominating somebody worse out of spite. So I don't know.
We'll deal with the devil we know then. Fine.
Address the 51st state discourse, which I find unsettling and frankly insulting. Canada is a strong, independent nation that's deep-rooted in decency, really. And it's a place that values high ethics and respect, unlike the polarized, disrespectful, and often now hate-fueled climate that's in the U.S. And look, Canada values a lot of fairness and unity. It's a place that I've learned as the national team coach where people really believe that their differences make them stronger. And honestly, it's one of the things that I've enjoyed the most about our team is that they exemplify this as human beings and as a team. And look, they're almost all first and second generation Canadians coming from different heritage and cultures, but they uniquely are incredibly proud to be Canadian, to represent their country, to give everything to each other and the love that they have for each other and playing for their country. And to me, this sounds very familiar to years past, right? So for me right now, I couldn't be prouder to be the Canadian national team coach. And I found a place where that embodies for me the ideals and morals of what not just football and a team is, but what life is. And that's integrity, respect, and the belief that good people can do great things together. And so if I have one message to our president, it's lay off the ridiculous rhetoric about Canada being the 51st state. As an American, I'm ashamed, right, of the arrogance and disregard that we've shown one of our historically oldest, strongest, and most loyal allies.
I was reminded that a year ago, Trump, via his ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, called Canadians mean and nasty.
Well, there are reasons why the president and some of his team refer to Canada as being mean and nasty to deal with.
They called Canadians mean and nasty for daring to stand up for our country's jobs, our economy, and our people. Mean and nasty for taking U.S. liquor off the store shelves. Fast forward a year, Trump is still a bully. Those U.S. booze bottles are still off the shelves.
There is not a chance in hell that U.S. alcohol is going back on the shelf in British Columbia.
It's clear that the ban on American booze is working.
Never started this tariff war, and I don't believe the American people did. It was Secretary Lutnick, followed by President Trump as well, that attacked our joint economies.
Canadians are still standing up for ourselves, and we won't stop. As Canada's premiers wrapped up their Council of Federation meeting, this message was conveyed loud and clear.
We can't keep rolling over for Donald Trump. So that's what I believe in, standing up strong. You negotiate through strength. You don't negotiate through weakness, especially with President Trump.
If the Prime Minister calls British Columbia and says he needs support with some big sticks to have conversations at the table, then we'll be there. And I am happy to stand with the Prime Minister in that kind of discussion.
It's a message that will carry through as the premiers wrap up their meeting with Prime Minister Carney, and it's a message for all Canadians to hold in this moment of national need.
Good news, Canada. The petition to get rid of the US ambassador to the country officially crossed 100,000 signatures yesterday at midnight, which I think is just delightful. It's just public humiliation for someone who really deserves it. Like, if you look into this guy's history, genuinely deserves this public humiliation which is going on right now. So the petition's called E7531. It is still active for signature, so you can still sign this right now. Introduced by someone named Lee Walker from Calgary, who was on Threads. She has an account on Threads, very fun, account over there. You should go check her out. She managed to get sponsorship from Elizabeth May, which means that it's going to be presented to Parliament by the end of the year. And it just talks about how this guy's been belligerent and completely unwelcome in the country. ever since he's arrived. If you didn't know, Pete Hoekstra has been, talking about how the 51st state rhetoric is all just should be taken as a compliment somehow, and that Canadians are being foolish by banning US booze. And yeah, I think he also verbally abused some lawmaker when the ad against tariffs ran earlier this year. If you remember the one that Doug Ford funded, he completely lost his mind about that. You should know that this is not his first time being an unwelcome guest in a country, because during Trump's first term, Pete was the ambassador to the Netherlands. Apparently he was born in the Netherlands, all right, but when he was there as an ambassador, he allegedly had a fundraiser for a far-right political party over there, and then that got him a similar dose of public backlash at the time from the Dutch media and the Dutch politicians. So yeah, this is just the way he rolls, apparently. Now, this is publicly humiliating for him. I wouldn't want to see 100,000 people signing signatures to get rid of me. So yeah, there's that. There's also the fact that we're trying to use public backlash as ammo for our trade negotiations, which are ongoing. So there's been some reporting recently that negotiators on behalf of the Canadian government have made it very clear to the Trump administration that Canadians are ready to take things much further. Like, we're ready to boycott a lot more and go, completely gloves off. So this kind of petition sends that signal for sure, even if it doesn't happen. And to be fair, there's very little chance that it will happen. Declaring an ambassador persona non grata is a big step. We've taken that before against China and India, but that was for like serious, misconduct. This is not that Pete's being particularly pleasant right now, but I think that, there's low chances of it happening. Anyways, it was just very fun to sign the It was just very fun to sign the petition, so I encourage you to do it as well.
The petition also raises concerns about what it describes as possible US diplomatic interference in Canadian affairs. It specifically calls on the Canadian government to declare Hoekstra persona non grata and request his removal as ambassador. It also asks for a parliamentary review of alleged US interference. But here is the important part. Signing the petition does not automatically remove the ambassador. Canadian parliamentary petitions are so binding. However, once they reach the required threshold, the government must provide an official response. This petition passed the threshold by an enormous margin, with the signature count reaching well over 170,000. So Canadians are not simply protesting one individual. This petition has become a symbol of much bigger disagreement over sovereignty, diplomacy, US policies toward Canada, and the future of the Canada-US relationship. With more than 170,000 signatures, the message from the petition's supporters is very clear. They want Ottawa to take their concerns seriously. Whether Canada ultimately takes the extraordinary step of declaring the American ambassador persona non grata remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, this story shows that the relationship between these two longtime neighbors is facing a level of tension that would have been difficult to imagine just a few years ago. What do you think? Should Canada remove the US ambassador, or would that make an already difficult relationship even worse? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you in the next one.